Alright guys, welcome to another video, and today I want to talk about a very important topic. A lot of you have been basically, telling me that, dude, how did you do so well on the RC section and we are not able to break it down? And I want to break this down for you, and I want to make sure that you never ever make a single mistake on the RC section of the GRE. Well, that's a bit too optimistic, but at least you should be getting, out of those 20 questions on that GRE test in total, out of 40, 20 are RC. I want to make sure that you get at least 18 of them correct, and we're gonna do this together. All right, this is gonna perfectly make sense. I'm sure that this will help you out. I'm sure that you will never ever really need another video on this section, but just pay attention here. Just make sure you get all the points correctly, and you will be able to score well on the RC section. That's my promise to you. All right. So let's begin with it. Again, as you guys know, my favorite book is the 5-Pound Book of Practice Problems. This is the same book as you can see from the title above over here. And we're going to see, well, by the way, this book offers, I think, over 180 reading comprehensions, just the normal reading comprehensions, and like, I think 50 or 55 or something, sorry, these are the solutions. 50 or 55 logic-based reading comprehensions. Now, logic-based reading comprehensions are very different, and I'm not really doing a video on those right now, but you need to make sure that you are basically performing well on the RC section. This is relatively easier. The logic-based ones are basically, much, much shorter, and they can be like a little tougher. But again, you need to know what you're doing and how you're basically, gonna break this down. So first master this one, and then go to logic-based. All right. So what I want you to do is, first of all, read all of the passage. That's the first thing I do. Whenever I used to have an RC in front of me, I would read the full passage. Okay, I would never try to, read just one paragraph and do questions from that. I know to some of you it might not, be very, very, basically, visceral at first, or you might really, use that approach first, where you just read half a paragraph and then answer a question. But again, the GRE is not the same as TOEFL. You do not get structured questions or, questions in order. So basically, you can even have a question from the last line of the passage appeared first, right? You want to make sure that you get those questions correctly. So to do that, read the passage, and I'm going to break down how much time I use. By the way, I think some of you kind of messaged me. There were some points that you wanted me to mention. So basically, I'm going to make sure that I do that. So first point was that how much time do I take on a longer passage or on a shorter passage? Now, I'm going to tell you that, I used to take about 3 minutes, but, I think it can be done in a lot faster way. But, I used to take 3 minutes on a longer passage. Like the longest passage, there's one very long passage. So I used to take like 3 minutes. But again, that's not a hard and fast rule. Sometimes I would even take 3 minutes and 45 seconds, but that would be the maximum amount. I would try to keep it under 4 minutes at all costs, because you only have 30 minutes, and basically, you can still refer to the passage while doing the questions. You don't have to memorize it or anything. So just make sure that you're taking not more than 4 minutes on that. I would recommend bringing it down to 3 minutes if you can. But again, that's really up to you. Okay. Next, I would want to make sure that you guys know how much time I took on the shorter passages. So on the shorter passages, I would take anywhere from 1 minute to 1.5 minutes. I would try to keep it under 2 minutes at all costs. Again, you want to make sure that you are not wasting a lot of time reading the passage, because it's going to be right there in front of you even when you are doing the question. One more thing, some people really like reading the question and then going to the passage. To me, that is stupid, because I don't know the first thing about the passage, and I'm just basically reading the question. That's not really helpful to me. I know some people just try to justify this, that all right, if we know the question, we know what to look for in the passage. But I don't want to focus on just one thing, because there are going to be more questions which might need me to have a better understanding of the passage as a whole, right? So I don't want to force myself to just focus on that one question. Like, it's about 5 or 6 questions that might appear from that passage, so you don't, like 4 even, so you don't know that. Don't rush into it. I mean, just understand the passage if you can, because as much understanding you gain, it's going to be proportional to the marks that you're going to score in the on your RC section, right? Okay. Well, the other questions were that I'm trying too many RCs and I'm not able to get anything out of it. All right, I'm gonna talk about this in a minute. There's one trick I would like you to use. I think it would be very very helpful if you can incorporate that in your practices. Let me just see. That's going to be the last part of this video. How to tackle long passages, and could you tell me about the time distribution management? I've already told you that, and yeah, I think that's all. How I attempted the questions. Okay, cool. So again, you already know how I attempted the question. I would read the passage first, and then I would go to the questions, and come back to the passage. So basically, when you read a question that tells you to infer something, or do something, try and not make a huge leap. By the way, don't take a huge leap from the passage, even if it's saying basically inference questions are just take a small leap of like 1 centimeter or so. Don't go too ahead of the passage. Whatever is mentioned in the passage, it's 90% of that and 10% of a leap. All right, that's important to recognize. And all right, now for that trick that I want to tell you. So basically, I never really did this, but I used to have this in the back of my mind at all times. Just because I practiced over 100 RCs and I was able to refine my techniques. So this is really how I would basically go on improving myself. Someone said that I'm trying too many of these and I'm just not able to get that. Well, to improve your score, I think you should really take up one notebook or take up probably a notepad or something. I'm gonna create this right here, like one txt document. That's it, and just name it something like mistake RC or whatever, and then open this up and attempt your first RC. All right, go to 5 pound book and attempt your first RC, and then just do one, and it might have 5 or 6 questions. Just finish those 5 or 6 questions and go and review. All right, then go and review and see where you went wrong, what you did wrong. All right, so there are some common criteria based on which these GRE instructors are trying to decoy you into their traps. They're trying to lure you into these traps, and you want to identify these traps, and that is your best bet for improving, I suggest. So I used to always have these traps going on in the back of my mind, so I would already uh, I wouldn't really need to do this. But again, if you have short time, I would really recommend that you do this. It would probably have helped me more if I did this. So really, do this, and by this, you are going to make sure that you're not really, making the same mistakes again and again, right? So let's see. Suppose you did the passage and you found out your first mistake. I'm going to point out 3 or 4 mistakes here that are very common to the RCs and the points that used to be on the back of my mind, right? So I've written them down. First, well, the whole passage is talking about dolphins, all right? And firstly, you have a question: how do dolphins basically communicate, all right? And the options, there are 5 options. You don't know which one to choose, but one of those seem very very easy to you because it's just somehow very very appealing to you. And you're probably confused between 2 options, and this one option is very appealing, but it mentions trouts. It's saying that trouts do this and they communicate like this. Basically, they light themselves up or something like that. So even though that might be mentioned in the passage somewhere, but that's a trick. Trouts might be mentioned in the passage, they might be mentioned somewhere else, or they might not be mentioned at all. But the important part is to basically understand that the question is asking about dolphins and not about trouts. So I call this the trouts aren't dolphins. You can call it anything really, just something like that. Right. So just write this mistake down. You don't have to do this every time. Like try to maintain something here. Like let's say you made this mistake once, so just write it one over here, right? And if you do make this mistake again, right, replace it with a two, right? So this is going to help you in tracking down how many times you're making such mistakes, and you're going to be able to basically make sure that you focus on the part where you're making the most mistakes. So next time maybe you see a passage where you have oranges and apples, and basically you do the same mistake with apples. Well, apples aren't oranges. There's no need to write this down again. Just use this and make this three, because that's basically the target. You want to make sure that you're making no mistakes that are similar conceptually, right? So this is one of the concepts that should be really, really helpful if you are writing your GRE soon. Second is these are some of the mistakes that I could just get from the back of my mind. By the way, I'm not giving you an exhaustive list here, so I would really want you to prepare your own. I'm just giving them to you in a crude way. As far as I remember, these used to be the common mistakes when I gave my GRE. That was like a month ago. So still, you know, try to identify your own mistakes. These were my mistakes, right? Second is that no real world knowledge. Well, what this means is basically I'm using the real world knowledge and I'm answering questions based on that. Now, the options might have five different choices, and one of those might be really appealing to you because it might be true in the real world, but it is not mentioned in the passage. Well, if it's not mentioned in the passage, you cannot really select that option because most questions have that punchline in front of them from the passage or according to the passage. So don't choose that, right? So keep noting these down, all right? Third, let's see. There's two extreme. These are very, very common. I'm sure most of you should know of these. Otherwise, you're doing really, really poorly on your essay, on your writing section, RC section, I believe. But try to get these, like, identify these because the GRE test makers, they are very, very, inclined to include this option in almost every RC you're going to see. Every time you'll see at least one or two questions include this option. The author thinks that all trouts communicate by lighting themselves up, something like that. All. Specifically, go and check in the passage. Does the author really mention something like this, all or every or something like that? Because in most cases, that won't be the case. They might mention most trouts, but then it's not the same as all, right? So that's a very common mistake that most people make on the GRE. These options can be very appealing, but make sure you do not select them because they are going to count against your score. Then they're not going to help you. Okay. Next, I'm just writing four of these over here. By the way, because I could only remember four off the top of my head right now. But make sure that you identify your own mistakes and kind of keep the count how many times you're making them, and then just focus on the ones that are most significant in your case. Okay. So okay, fourth one is do not depreciate anybody. Okay. Well, let's say it's asked of you that you identify how the author feels about someone else, in the passage, or maybe how the critics, or unless it's critics right over here explicitly, you want to follow this technique. All right. I don't know about critics. You could still use this. Be wary of using this in case of critics. But if it's asked, how is the author's opinion about a particular subject or a particular book? Maybe he's reviewing something or something. And the option is that the options are he's really indignant. He's really sarcastic. He thinks very badly of it. All right, fine. Don't select extreme options that suggest that he's something like contemptuous or indignant about it. If you don't know the meaning of these words, do Google them. But basically what they're saying is that the author scoffs at these books, or he hates them kind of, to an extent that is really, really, he just detests them. I don't know how many of these words you get, but most of these words are really, really synonyms. So I think even if you know one word, you would have understood what I'm trying to say. Like, the author would not really deprecate someone so badly, or he wouldn't really try to put them out of business or something. So most of these options are usually wrong. Now, this is again from my experience. Don't I really suggest don't go with extreme options, and these are kind of extreme. This does fall in the category of the third mistake as well. But I think it deserves kind of a category on its own. So don't select these options that the author is really, really indignant about, or he hates this thing or something. Yeah, he might be cautious of these. He might be he might just not like them, in essence of it. But he won't essentially you won't essentially see these passages. I mean, there might exist many of these in real world, but you won't really see a lot of them on the GRE, right? So make sure that you are kind of cautious or wary about these or whatever. So this was my quick review of the RC section. Again, whenever you solve another RC, come back to this thing after reviewing and make sure that you write down your mistake right? And don't keep creating new points unless you really think you have found a conceptual, you know, phenomena according to which, or conceptual paradigm according to which the author is basically, or the GRE test maker is basically trying to decoy you into their trap. But make sure that you do this. It will really help you out as it is. And again, according to me, read the whole passage. In summary, read the whole passage at first. You know, don't waste a lot of time on reading it because you're gonna have it again around you. So just try to skim through it. Give the importance to the first and the final lines in every paragraph, and all of that. So yeah, and you should be good to go. Practice from 5 pound book. I think they have 180 of RCs. This is not for the logical reasoning, but again, you can still apply these techniques in the logical reasoning part as well. It will be really helpful for you. So I think that's all. And if you do like the video, please do consider subscribing to the channel and giving me a thumbs up. And if there's anything I couldn't answer in this video, please mention it in the comments down below. I would definitely make sure that I answer it. Anything, any other ideas for videos, just let me know, alright? Thanks and bye.